Okay folks, can you hear me okay? Welcome back. My name's Chris Scutt. I'm going to talk to you for half an hour on the wonderful world of Avaya Contact Center Select. So this is one of the answers to the questions that were posed this morning really with regard to the whole changing landscape of what is customer contact and other things. So titled it Contact Center in the Mid-Market. My name is Chris Scutt from Avaya. First thing really is Avaya is very well known for contact center. Been very good within this space for many years. As you can see, we've been in this Gartner as an industry analyst, and we've been in their Magic Quadrant for 14 years consecutively, and with good reason, because we pay attention really to your customers. At the end of the day, they are our sort of guiding light, and we've looked at customer expectations this morning, and Avaya spends considerable amount of time looking at those expectations to ensure that the technology we're developing is actually going to meet those needs. Okay, so we do a lot of crystal ball gazing, and this is one of the fundamentals that we really have got to get right. In terms of when the customer wants something, we need to provide it on time, and we either reach out to the customer to provide that, or we reactively provide it when the customer asks. And similarly, relevance. That goes both ways. We've got to understand really how relevant that customer is to us, and then treat them accordingly. And similarly, if we provide content to them, it has to be relevant. Because at the end of the day, if you remember back to Morris's presentation with the sheep in the pen, we're trying to get away from that type of thinking. Customers are individuals, and generally speaking, they respond a lot better and spend more money with us if we treat them and make them feel like individuals. Okay. And that's kind of leading on to the personalization as well. That's how you achieve that. And in terms of the transactions, conducting business with our company, if you can make that a friction-free experience, there's a good chance they're going to come back for more. Okay, so Avaya pays a lot of attention to this rather than just developing technology for the sake of it. Okay, it really has got to support this fundamental. Okay, and we saw this morning from Mark. Very relevant again in terms of the overall journey, and the point really being is we've got to make it seamless and simple, and this particular product we're going to focus on this afternoon does achieve that. It's a very, very simple way of providing this exceptional customer experience at optimum cost and benefit to your business, importantly. Okay, so that's going to be a thread that kind of goes through this product as we go through this session. Seamless and simple, low customer effort. Because the reality is there's lots of plates spinning out there, and when we've talked about it this morning, we've heard from various presenters, there's a consistent message here that customers are expecting more these days, and not only are they expecting more, they're expecting more quickly, if that makes sense. The pace of change is relentless. And in terms of, on the right-hand side there, how customers, particularly the younger generation, are expecting to interact with organisations is changing considerably. And we're certainly seeing that the phone is still the primary channel. We don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. What we are seeing is a proliferation of other channels. And that creates a difficulty when you're an organisation trying to provide all these channels for choice and then provide a joined-up experience for our customers. That's easier said than done. And on the left-hand side there's percentage figures there, as you can see. That's some of the research that's come out of what happens when we get this right and what happens when we get this wrong. So this is all leading on to the product. We're moving closer to it now. It's very important that we address the business benefits and the business challenges, not the technology. On the left-hand side there, some pretty obvious pain points. I expect you'd probably recognise a lot of those within your organisation or your customers' organisations. On the right-hand side there, the resolutions. So those are the resolutions that we can provide with the single product. Okay, keeping it simple and straightforward. Avaya Contact Center Select. It's a multi-channel product. So it's not a voice product with bolt-ons. It's, from design, a multi-channel product. So we handle all different types of customer contacts in exactly the same way. Nice and simple, nice and streamlined. And it's got quite a sophisticated routing engine as well. So the idea there is we can avoid transfers. If we can route customers to the right resource in the shortest possible time, we can avoid all the hassle of having to put the customer on hold, find somebody else who's more suitable and transfer. because typically that is not what the customer wants. They want this seamless, frictionless experience, and being answered once only to be transferred is not a characteristic of a frictionless experience. We also have the capability, and we'll see a bit more later, with regard to recording calls. So really very powerful. We can record calls, we can start to do financial transactions over the phone, save lots of paperwork, lots of follow-up. And the product is also proactive. So we're not just talking about reacting to all these multimedia channels coming in. We can actually reach out to customers when it makes sense. Okay. Let's move on. We'll expand this out a little bit more. So the Redbox is the one we're going to be talking about today. So it's actually built on an established product from Avaya called Avaya Aura Contact Center. So that is proven in the marketplace. There are getting on for 20,000 deployments of that product. So Avaya Contact Center Select in the bottom right there is an evolvement of that same code, that same product, to fit the mid-market space. So what we've done is adapted it to integrate to IP Office, which is the perfect unified communications platform for the mid-market, but then leave it on all that fantastic capability of Avaya Aura Contact Center, but repackaged and repriced for the mid-market. So what you effectively get is an enterprise-grade product at a mid-market price, which is really quite compelling. As you can see, sub 250 agents, so that's actually quite a large contact center, up to 250. And you may be interested to know that the vast majority in percentage terms of all contact centers globally is sub 250. So it actually addresses a huge portion of the market. And Avaya is consequently putting a huge effort into this particular product. It's multilingual by design, and as I've already mentioned, it's multi-channel. Okay, so let's see some more about that now. It's part of the IP Office family, as I've mentioned. So you get the strengths of the Avaya Contact Center Select platform for your contact center needs, plus the strengths of IP Office for your back office and your unified communication needs. Okay, so it's a partnership of two great products, ideally aimed at the mid-market and priced accordingly. Okay, so a huge amount of functionality. So let's just start to peel back the layers on the Contact Center Select platform now. So it's a multi-channel platform, so we're talking about voice, email, web chat, so SMS being texting to your mobile phones, and fax. In addition to receiving those contacts, we can then apply a single routing engine to those contact types. And in addition to that, we can apply a single reporting engine. And this is the whole simplistic way that it operates. It's a really straightforward system that turns what could be potentially very complex and cumbersome and inefficient into something that's fairly straightforward. Okay. So skills-based routing is the term. We can identify customers when they come in, and we can then differentiate them and route them accordingly. Okay, and that is if they're using voice, email, web chat, you name it. Okay, so the important thing is then we can avoid the transfers, as I say, and get them through to the right resource, shortest possible time. We have a call recording platform on IP Office, which we then use to record these interactions. And in so doing, we can obviously then avoid the you said, I said arguments. Okay, so really important we've got that blanket recording platform. And the last bullet point here is, I've mentioned already that we can reach out to customers. We absolutely can, because as a standard part of the product, there's an outbound engine. So we have a campaign management engine, and we can feed contacts into that campaign. It'd be various campaigns, it'd be various reasons for reaching out to customers, and we can use the same teams of people to reach out to customers when there's not much happening on the inbound. So you've got relative priorities of these contacts. If it's really busy inbound, you don't make outbound. The system will automatically start to make outbound when the inbound goes quiet. So from an agent productivity point of view, if there is a lull in the inbound traffic, they're not sat back doing a crossword. You can actually utilise these agents to do some productive outbound work. And from an agent, job satisfaction point of view, they've got variety. You're not just dealing with a bombardment of inbound voice calls all day. So you've got a nice variety of email, web chat, voice calls, inbound or outbound. And just building on the agent and supervisor desktop, So we have the ability to importantly integrate to CRM platforms. So typically in organizations, particularly as they scale up, will have some form of customer relationship management platform, whether that's an in-house platform or an off-the-shelf type platform. So this product, although it's aimed at off-the-shelf, rapid deployment, has the ability to integrate to a CRM platform that you may have. And the idea is that as a contact comes through to an agent, that agent is presented with one or a series of pages, possibly from your CRM application, maybe from your booking system or your reservation system or your ticketing system or whatever systems you have. The idea is that the agent is presented with this one or a series of those pages that represent that customer and the reason why that customer is contacting you. And that can be not just phone calls, emails, web chat, even outbound. Okay? And the link with the CRM can be done even without any integration, because there's a certain amount of pre-integration that's already done, and all we need to do is fill in the configuration boxes to achieve a certain amount of that integration. So very powerful screen pop as standard, and we also have a history as well. So every time a customer contacts us, obviously we have that history, and that history is presented to the agent every time that customer comes in. So it's a much more of a joined up experience, both from your perspective and from the customers. And I should also mention, there's the ability to jump between channels as well. So if we've come in as an email and the CRM's opened up and we understand that this particular customer, there's some urgent requirement, there's no reason why we can't just switch to voice and call them with the email in front of us. We can just jump between the media channels as it makes sense. Second major point on this slide, again, really critical, is the reporting capability. The product captures the data all the time. You don't have to ask it, and it keeps it all the time. The idea then is you can mine that database and produce reports. There are 50 templates you get as standard. You can create more, but the idea is you do a little bit of preparation work up front, identify which reports are meaningful to you. It's almost like separating the wheat from the chaff. So the 5% of the 95% that's relevant to you, those reports would run automatically. And they would then notify interested parties automatically. And then that leaves supervisors only having to run ad hoc, one-off type reports manually. The rest is automated. So again, the idea is it's trying to take the regular tasks off you and just present the exceptional tasks maybe that you need to get involved in. Lots of thresholds built into the reports to ensure that you do manage by exception. It's another key fundamental. I suppose I ought to mention as well as the historical reports, there's also a raft of real-time. So you can have graphical or table-based or a mixture, aimed at supervisors typically, but can also be for teams. So it could be up on a projector, on a plasma, or on a supervisor's screen. Real-time information. And that can be on your teams and how they're performing, how many calls they've taken, what the longest answer wait time is, what the average handling time is, all those type of stats that you're probably familiar with. But also it can be looking at the channels coming in. So importantly, because they're all contacts, doesn't matter what type, you can look at how many emails they're awaiting, how many web chats are waiting, how long they've been waiting. Service levels across all the media types, all on the same display. And this is all through Internet Explorer, so it's all thin browser based, so you don't even have to be on your premise, you can be across the internet. And this is all standard. So in terms of a very high level sort of diagram, if you like, of what we're getting here, so on the left hand side, whole raft of channels you can offer to your customers. Single routing engine brings those channels in, routes customers through accordingly to your resource on the right, and the resource doesn't have to be people. Okay, but it does have the ability to route to individual agent. So with an example of an email, if an email comes in, it will reroute the reply back to the same agent. It makes perfect sense. But we can apply that routing logic as well for any other media type. So if we want to target an individual, we can do so, but more typically we target skills, so the agent groups there. We can actually target destinations at the back office if we wish. And obviously on board we've got the ability to use the usual announcements and music on delay and this type of thing that you would expect, including call steering. So if you need to offer, press 1 for this, 2 for that, 3 for the other. That's again standard. And at the bottom there, outbound. As I say, inbuilt outbound capability, preview progressive. Okay. So in terms of typical uses, so on the left-hand side there, Outbound, very popular for collections or reminders, where we need to reach out to our customers because it makes sense for us to do so, because it saves us time and effort if we reach out and prod the customer rather than waiting for the customer to contact us. And as I say, these activities can all be blended against the inbound using the same agents. And email, great channel, but it's been a real pain for some customers to manage. So all of a sudden, email can come into the contact center. You can understand how many emails you're getting, how long they're taking to be answered. And from that sort of information, you can start to gauge how many people you need, or how many people you haven't got and you need. So all of a sudden, the reports can turn the light on to the type of service that your customer's getting. So email's pretty sophisticated. We've got templates to give you quality answers that are pre-built. We can route emails based on not only the email address the sender sent to or their email address, we can also route it on keywords, whether that's in the header or the body. And if you're offering a web form on your web page, that can be received as an email and treated similarly. So lots of rules, lots of different ways to respond to them. Some can be auto-reply, some can just have a courteous response and route it to a team. You can allocate a priority. Not only that, when agents reply, you can then trigger certain emails to go for supervisor approval. And that might be because the email agent is a novice and you're just coaching them. It might be because of the type of email they've replied to, or it might be the words they've used. So the system can automatically pass their reply not to the customer, but to their supervisor to approve. So very powerful. So SMS chat, so SMS obviously to a mobile phone, chat to your website. Okay, very, very powerful. And we heard about that this morning. You know, this ability to have a button on your website to keep the customer there when they're going to place an order and they've got a question. Again, it comes in as just any other contact type. Obviously quite a high priority because it's fairly timely. But importantly, you can route it and report on it so you know how many chats you're getting. And you know that you're replying to them straight away because you can't queue chats. You've got to have the people to answer that chat. Okay, and on the right-hand side to mention that social media is in the pipeline. It's just subject to testing. We have a hosted offer for social media, which we're finding works much better with particularly Facebook and Twitter, who change their APIs without notice on a regular basis. So where it's a hosted service, Avaya takes care of that hassle for you, because that hassle's not going away. So when Facebook and Twitter and the others change their APIs, Avaya deal with it, you don't have to. All you get to use is the social media service. And it's delivered, or will be delivered, just as any other contact type. You give it appropriate priority through to appropriate teams. Okay, and again, you get the all-important reports real time and historical. So extremely powerful out of the box. And looking at routing and resource prioritization in the red top right box, so that gives you an indication really of how it's come down from this enterprise product that I mentioned at the start. It does look hugely scalable, but to be honest with you, if you think about it being multilingual and multi-channel, you can start to multiply up the skills quite quickly in that environment. So actually 1,500 skills sounds like quite a lot, but you could eat into that quite quickly. But the great thing is there's no glass ceiling with this product. It's hugely capable. And in general, what happens is customers put it in and it's ticking over. There is a huge amount of capability you can actually get out of this product over time. There's so much latent power. It's a really, really good option. And particularly in this market where everything's changing so rapidly, if it's just a case of configuring it and getting it going, that's much quicker than hitting a product problem or a product deficiency that then requires more licenses or an upgrade or even, God forbid, a change of product. So loads of scope with this product for the coming years. It's really important. And a little point to mention is that we've got the ability also with this dynamic agent standby, if service levels fall, it's actually got an inbuilt ability to bring in extra resource on demand in real time. And the way that works is you can put a service level against a particular skill or a number of skills. And if that service level, and you define the formula for the service level as well, so you can be very prescriptive, if it's in jeopardy, the system then goes away and brings out of standby a group of agents that you've said are in standby for this should this occur. And if that's not sufficient, what it's trying to do is just provide that really rapid response to these scenarios without a supervisor, A, having to be there, B, identify what the issue is, and C, take action, which all takes time. Okay. So extremely powerful for routing, as you would expect. 150 skills per agent, and within each skill they can be between a priority of 1 and 48 or in standby. So loads of flexibility for your teams. You know, who are experts in certain disciplines, they can be priority 1s, and if you've got novices, they'd be priority 2s, and maybe people who do that occasionally be priority 3s. So you can have teams that kind of overlay each other in real time and just get contacts as the system decides. So you build in the intelligence and it goes away and does the job. So I mentioned call recording, have the call recording platform on IP Office, so really important from the point of view of taking business over the phone. And blended inbound, outbound. Okay, so this is a little bit more detail now on this outbound engine that I mentioned. Okay, so the idea is really we can then get a list of customers, and typically we would import that list from one of your systems. Okay, and that is then a list of customers to call for a reason. We then generate the series of questions and answers that we require the agents to ask of these customers. That campaign is then created to run at a certain time over a certain series of dates perhaps. And then those calls will then be put into the queue at a certain priority. And as I say, they'll get fed through to the agents, provided there's nothing of a higher priority waiting, which typically would be inbound. So inbound voice, very high priority. Inbound web chat, high priority. Yeah, so as long as there's nothing waiting, this will start to make outbound calls. And the agent's presented with the script, which is the questions and the answers, which they'll then go through. And in addition, we can pop various pages that support that activity automatically. Okay, and then importantly, those questions and answers can be exported back, and you can then analyse the success or failure of that campaign. Standard feature. Okay, really quite powerful. Okay, and desktops. So agents have a desktop. So clearly they need a phone, and they would have one. They would either have a hard phone from IP Office, or they'd have an IP Office soft phone, and that would be married to an agent desktop. And all the contacts and the screen pops and the CRM and everything they need would all be presented to them automatically within this consistent, easy to drive desktop. Yeah? So once agents learn how to drive the desktop, they've learnt it. So it's really easy to introduce other channels later on if you don't introduce them all at the same time, which to be honest with you is probably not a practical approach. So yeah, consistent handling of multiple contacts, absolutely. Sharing our customer details, and even if we transfer the call, the screen pops go with the call. Fantastic. We also have the ability to record reason and disposition codes. So these are codes that we can use in the reports to track certain instances. So we have activity codes, which might be responding to a marketing or an advert or something else we want to track. We do after call work codes, that's wrap codes, what people are doing after a call. Yeah, and disposition codes will be for the outbound. Again, we're recording the activities that occur within the outbound campaign. So it's all extra granularity for reporting purposes. So you really can keep your finger on the pulse. And from a supervisory perspective, it's browser-based. As I say, you can access this from home, provided you've got a VPN connection to work. With Internet Explorer then, it's roles-based access, so you can just get access to where you need to. Okay, so if it's a view-only situation, you get view-only. If you're in full admin rights, you've got full admin rights. Okay, so you decide what people get access to, but it's all through a consistent user interface. Coming back to this really simple experience again. Once supervisors and managers can navigate this web page, that's all they need to navigate. Interesting feature for supervisors as well is that particularly where agents are remotely located, because they could be remotely located at home, we have the ability as a supervisor to force change their state. So it's a very useful feature where supervisors can take an agent out or bring them in on demand. And the agent then gets a pop-up toast to tell them who's then forced their change of state. Okay. And real-time, clearly, supervisors have a whole raft of real-time displays. Very, very powerful for real-time displays, including their team and the colours of their teams all showed up, and the colours represent their activities, and we can drill down and we can see why they're not ready. We can see what after-call work code they put in. There's loads of granularity within the supervisor admin screen. And reporting, a couple of screenshots there. The system does come with some reports set up as standard. As I say, it's ticking over generally this system. There's so much you can do with it, and there's so much potential for the partner, the Avaya partner that installs the system. So much potential here to configure and create some really powerful reports and displays. So certainly high impact, fully customizable. It is web-based, as I've mentioned. You certainly get full control over agents, your customer channels and the groups. Mentioned historical and real time. You can export, so I didn't mention that. So we can export these reports into various formats. There's a whole raft of format types you can export it to. And if you wish, obviously, you can then further manipulate the data in an external application if that's something you're familiar with. And Excel is a great choice. And I've mentioned automatic, and obviously manual then being the ad hoc. But very sophisticated reporting engine, as you would expect, because this came from an enterprise product. Okay, so lots and lots of capability, but don't run away with the idea thinking it's complicated. It's not complicated, but there's huge capability. That's the thing. You bite off as much as you want to chew, but there's just so much more when you're ready. Okay, so in terms of admin and generating the flow of customers through the system, so there is a graphical workflow engine, you'll be pleased to hear. So what that basically does is gives you a picture of how contacts come into the organisation, the rules that you then apply, and then how the contacts will then flow through the organisation to the right resource. Okay, and you can document it as well. So you can produce a nice PDF that then shows you exactly how customers flow through your system. Okay. So the screen pops I've mentioned. Okay, so very simple to configure screen pops. The integration is all done for you. It's just filling in the configuration. And down the bottom here, so in December, I'm going to come on to this a little bit more, but in December there's going to be a dot release upgrade of the product, and that's going to be introducing a self-service platform. So again, that self-service platform exists today in the enterprise space. It's going to be repackaged and repriced for the mid-market to complement Avaya Contact Center Select. So that'll be for the purposes of either partial self-service, which might be identifying the customer and asking them for their account number or other salient points, or it might be taking their credit card payment or something like that. Okay, so that's coming in December. And the platform has as standard the ability to speak and listen to customers. Okay, so from a usability, frictionless experience perspective, if we can talk to a machine and it listens and talks back to us, that's inherently much easier than pressing 1 for this and 2 for that, and listening to a whole raft of menus. So huge capability coming. So, and 6.4.2 is the dot release, okay, that I'm alluding to. So that is expected to go generally available on December the 22nd. So some of the key points are resilience. So we're going to be aligning the resilience of ACCS, as it's known, Avaya Contact Center Select, with the new resilience features of IP Office. So this means that you don't have to have all your eggs in one basket. So you can have the deployment within the data center, fully virtualized, but you can have an instance of it in another location, importantly. Okay, so particularly as we scale up from a business importance point of view, we need an insurance at the end of the day, and that's kind of where resilience comes in. We have this off-site secondary system that can then take over should the worst happen. Interestingly as well, the Avaya CS1000 migrations, so there is quite a huge customer base of the old Nortel CS1000, and the contact center associated with that would be known as Symposium, CC6 or CC7, so those particular deployments could be a perfect candidate to move forwards to this particular system. And the reason it's a perfect candidate is because the look and feel of the system will be very much the same. So in terms of user adoption and the ability to then exploit that from a business point of view is short, because it's essentially very much the same system. And the experience portal at the bottom there, so that's the self-service platform, as I say, is going to be repriced and repackaged for the mid-market in December. Okay, so again, huge scope from a self-service point of view. And I didn't mention that, but I will now, in that self-service and web are identified as the two cheapest channels. So we're offering choice to customers. We tend to drive them to the web if we can and provide web chat because it's a very cheap way of serving customers and making it good for them. But similarly, self-service is also extremely cost-effective compared to actual people and used for the right reasons at the right time. It's very acceptable indeed. You think of phone banking. Yeah. Okay, so in summary then, so once we get to December with this .2 feature pack, we're looking at a system really capable of many, many things. And I wouldn't expect organisations to be taking a product and using all of them day one, but it's the potential. That's the key message that I'm trying to get across to you. This is an extremely capable system with so much latent potential. And this is not even taking into account Avaya's plans for it. There's so many more things it already does, which we haven't packaged and we haven't priced. But it does them already because it's based on the enterprise product that has that capability today. So we've talked about resilience on the left-hand side here, the self-service aspect, sorry about the acronyms, advanced speech recognition, ASR, and text-to-speech, TTS. So that's the self-service app that talks to you and listens to what you say and responds. Yeah, and we've talked about CRM integration, and that could be advanced speech apps. Again, we've got this engine that talks to you and listens to you. Lots of capability there, but the apps need to be packaged. That's all part of the offering that's going to come. Okay? So we don't want to be giving you a blank sheet of paper and expecting you to develop an app. We're going to give you a packaged app where most of the effort's done. And resilience, I've mentioned. Routing and skills, absolutely. Very, very sophisticated from a routing and skill set point of view. Very scalable. Management reporting, 49/50 templates to which you adapt. Say you just take the 5% that make sense to you and run those. Very customizable from a real-time point of view. So you've got graphical wallboards, you've got table-based as well, all from a browser. And the ability to remotely log out agents, as you can see, particularly for home working. And over on the right-hand side there, voicemail and recording. So again, on the IP Office platform that it works with, you've got that fundamental feature.